Hi everyone, I'm Juan Gabriel and this is One on One, where we play games with tech and investment titans. Today we welcome Wiza Jalakasi, and this is exciting for me as it marks the start of making this show truly global by moving beyond the US. Wiza is an expert in international expansion and currently the VP of Developer Relations at Chipper Cash, a mobile money service in Africa, and a venture partner at multiple funds, including Rallycap Ventures, from where we know each other, and Sherpa Africa. Wiza is not busy enough, so he also scouts for two early stage venture funds. Wiza, what a pleasure and a treat to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Juan. I've been looking forward to this for some time. It's really unique. It makes it a lot easier to just have a conversation because it's way more relaxed when you're playing a video game.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're at ease here as we're in this Roblox metaverse. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll still ask it anyways. Are you much of a gamer?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my DS5 controller right here. That's hooked up to DS4 Windows and is emulating itself as an Xbox 360 controller so that I can actually use it to play Roblox wirelessly. So I'm a pretty big gamer. It's one of my favorite pastimes. I've been gaming for years, and yeah, it's just been very useful for me to have.
Which games are your bread and butter?
I like RPGs, story and adventure games. Right now, I am playing Far Cry 6, which has been pretty good. I've really been having a blast on that one. So yeah, it's been great. I like long storied games more so than anything else.
These are the ones I call time sinks. They're the best, but they
yeah.
take up the time.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Getting into this, I guess, when did you start getting into technology, computers? Was there a natural progression? Or was there a moment that really sparked your love for all things tech?
Yeah, so it kind of started out with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
My dad used to buy and sell computers from South Africa and import them into Malawi. So I'm Malawian, and it's like not a very sophisticated country. So there's not like a lot of availability of like modern and quote unquote nice things.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I used to help him set them up, and I just found it like deeply fascinating. And the more I learned, the more I fell in love with it, really, just like computing as a concept, and like, oh, we both survived. That's great.
Both survived.
Yeah, I basically like learned how to code by the time I was like 11, and that was like, it opened up like so many possibilities. So since then, it's just been getting deeper and deeper into the tech.
I love that. And you mentioned Malawi. I was actually at the Sequoia offices a couple of weeks ago speaking with Konstantin Buehler and Doug Leone, and Doug has this thing that an affinity for what he calls underdog founders, people with some kind of chip on their shoulder, the overlooked, the underdogs. Coming from Bolivia, I perceive Bolivia to be one of those underdog countries. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I don't think I have a very specific point of view. Like, it's definitely a thing where it's harder to do certain things when you're from certain countries or certain places. But like, for me, I've always like sort of tried to play that to my advantage. So, I usually stand out. I'm probably the first Malawian you've met, and that happens to me all the time. And like, it's a great social opener, I guess, and it helps to differentiate yourself from other people, and it gives you an opportunity to tell a unique story, and I think that's pretty much where the benefit ends.
We're talking, I'm guessing as well, Visa's size of market and other things, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, like, it gets harder to like, there's so many things I'd love to build for Malawi, but like, there's no VC who's going to write me a check to address a population of like 20 million people, 90% of whom are like smallholder farmers. So, and I'm not even mad at that. Like, it's just like a fundamental reality of where we are. Oh gosh, how do we get out of here?
Yeah, I don't know if it's better to stay indoors or outdoors, but I'll try to have a look out for the meteorites from above.
Yes.
Great. And so that's one of the things about venture investing. It requires a scale, a sufficient scale to make that investment worth it. In most countries, very few countries really live up to that. Bolivia is definitely not one of them. Perhaps Malawi is not. Africa as an overall enormous continent and region could be. Did you just get wiped?
Yeah, I just got wiped.
I guess the question is like, that comes to mind is there's a need for broader scale, and it's really hard to reach that. at an individual country level, but at a regional basis it is. What do you think is the future for regional integration in Africa to build, let's say, something more akin to a European Union within Africa that has intra-regional trade, freedom of movement for labor, for goods, for services, and sort of more harmonized regimes? What do you see as the potential of that? What would that unlock? Or is that not a great idea?
No, I think it's an absolutely great idea, and I think that there's already like the preliminary structures that would preface it. So this year, the continent launched the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement, and that basically allows easier movement of certain types of goods and services across African states. Is the African Union, which is a political organization that has been around for a while, and they have a specific vision to essentially unite the continent in a way that the EU has by the year 2063. Now, it's going to take a lot of time and effort, and like it's just a fundamentally different I think experience than like the rest of the world, because like Africa has not had institutions for as long as like the US or Europe, for example. Like African countries, just the idea of African countries, it's an idea that's less than 100 years old. A lot of African countries are republics that were got independence from their former colonial masters around the 1960s. So we're dealing with very young institutional structures that are still trying to find their way in a sense, and like that is just like the reality of where we are today, and there's not much that we can do about it. There's fire raining from the sky in this game, and I am a little bit panicked about it, but I think I'll be fine. Oh my gosh, the thing is melting.
That is gonna melt as well where you're standing on.
Okay, cool. So
that's a really good point. I'm glad to hear that there's progress on the Latin America front. I think the independence has been for an extra 100 years, but we haven't created cohesive institutions. We've created competing institutions for the integration of the region. I think that's one of the barriers. From
why do you think that's so? Is it like a language thing? Because like with Africa, there's a language thing that's influencing a lot of the political movement. So you've got Francophone Africa and you've got Anglophone Africa. Is it similar in Latin America?
I'm very passionate about these topics, and I think part of it is history and nationalism being more entrenched. Perhaps more time as independent countries that have separated from each other. There's a little bit more animosity. I'm from Bolivia. We have a historical animosity with Chile because they took away access to the sea, is what we claim. And then I think the institutions that try to create any kind of regional thing are very politically motivated. They're either right-led or sort of leftish-led. And I don't think they survive the tides of time and the political pendulum. And that's sort of a big challenge and something that I hope the institutions that you're describing are able to overcome.
Yeah, I think, politics in general is not as complex and as layered as you've described there here. So I'm hoping that there's a lot more that can like unite us as a continent than makes us feel a need to be separated. It's already pretty bad. Like just like traveling intra-Africa for Africans is a nightmare. For the last 16 months, I've been trying to figure out how I can get a work visa for South Africa as a Malawian. We're all like part of like the same development community in Southern Africa, but it is still like one of the most difficult things I've ever done. So yeah, I think it's going to take some time, but hopefully we get there.
So if we look
I'm banking on,
go for it.
I'm banking on our generation of leaders, quote unquote, like young people, millennials that in the next 10, 20 years will be key decision makers in both the private and the public sector. And maybe that can make a big difference as to the experience that many Africans have. How am I still like losing health, but I'm clearly sheltered?
I don't know. I lost track of you at this point. Trying to find you within this house.
I went up to the attic, but maybe that was a bad idea.
maybe that was it. Yeah, you do look like you're a little bit hurting.
Yeah.
So I guess out of all these things that we were talking about, what is the main pain point? Because you were just talking about the labor mobility piece and being able to deploy talent across the region. There's a capital markets issue that even the EU struggles with. Like, if you do end up building a big company based out of Africa, you might list on European Stock Exchange or US Stock Exchange, as Jumia has done. What are sort of what really would it take to unlock? Out of all the things that we talked about, what would make the biggest difference in your mind to entrepreneurs in Africa?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to point at any like one specific thing,
Right.
but obviously the unity of the market is a big one, and economic incentive is a very strong one. And if you look at the per capita GDP of many African countries today, there's like a lot of work to be done, to put it lightly, right? So enabling people to be able to earn more, that that would be quite powerful and compelling, and I think there would be a lot of political will for that. But like the way it comes into being, I think that's like up for debate, and whether or not the leaders that we have in many parts of the society today, whether or not they're incentivized to push that agenda, I think that's the conversation that needs to be taking place. Again, when you look at the history of the continent, it's like, okay, we were sort of just like thrown democracy, and so hey, be democratic,
Right.
without any like sort of tools and structures, and like we're ill-equipped to handle what democracy means. So yeah, it's very difficult to navigate that. Yeah, so it's going to be a function of time, but that economic unity is going to be the first key. Oh, I just died from this deadly virus.
You died from the deadly virus. I probably shouldn't be hanging around the corpse, but so I'll run away. That's so the politics piece of it is important. I want to pivot a little bit more back to investing, in one of the things that you've been doing more recently, although you've done a bit of everything. What are some of the most important framework that you apply when you're looking at investments in the African continent? What helps things really stand out?
Yeah, I think it's just like the traits of the leadership or the founders, and I look for like certain like entrepreneurial traits. Like resilience is a very big one, because like I don't think you can evaluate startups in Africa the same way you might in a more mature startup ecosystem. Like it's still very nascent, so it's like you're really making a bet on the team, unless it's a very late stage startup that has got like a ton of maturity, etc. So I just look for the founders more so than anything. Like what traits do they have? Are they going to be able to navigate all of this complexity? How well connected are they? How well can they attract talent? What are the smartest people in the sector that I have access to? What are they saying about the business and the business model? Things like those. So it's really mostly about the people. And as you start to get to later stages, then it becomes more appropriate to apply more robust frameworks, centered around like actual numbers and performance, etc.
Right.
But like how many African startups are there today? I think it's very few. So I make bets on people more so than anything else, and maybe that's why I decided to give up on VC. It's like I meet so many cool people, and I'm like, okay, you get money, you get money, you get money. And that's like I should start like the Oprah VC fund for Africa.
Everyone go to Wiza, he'll give you money.
Yeah, like I'm just so irrationally optimistic sometimes about other people's businesses and endeavors that like I'm not able to objectively evaluate certain things. I'm pretty strong on the tech side, so like if you have like a technical product already and like it's working, I can like evaluate it quite thoroughly to the point where some folks who run accelerators have been asking me to help them do technical due diligence on some of their investments. That's been a bit of a learning journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love to hear that, and I want to sort of flip this on you and your experience being an entrepreneur. I guess to think about that in more detail. What are some of the things that you see in other people and other entrepreneurs that you wish you would have had when you were an entrepreneur, or that they have that you think was very valuable when you were building?
Yeah, I think just like general resilience is absolutely key, because it's just really, really hard. And the amount of no's that you have to deal with building tech on this continent, explaining things to people who don't understand why what you're trying to do is even important. I think knowing when and how to ask for help is a pretty useful skill to have that I didn't when I was starting out. So I was trying to figure everything out on my own, and I had like access to a lot of resources who could have helped me, but then I just didn't take advantage of that. So I consider those my unforced errors. Maybe I wouldn't have failed at certain things if I had just like asked for help. And then lastly, I think the most important thing is just the ability to build relationships, because the structures to evaluate your business on merit just don't exist. So you being able to have the relationships with people who can sort of like act as a credibility proxy for you to get access to certain circles is pretty key. So what I mean by this is like if you go to Malawi today and say you want to start a crypto exchange, there's no license for that. It's completely unregulated. So if you start it, like, you'll be fine and you'll be able to grow. But at some point, like, you will get regulated, and the regulators don't have any capacity at all to be able to evaluate Coinbase versus
Right.
Binance, for example. But like what Binance is doing right, that Coinbase isn't doing yet, is that like they're actually investing in people on the ground on the continent, so like they can actually have these conversations and engage with the regulators proactively. Just as an example, right? But like, yeah, all of it is just relationship building.
Boots
So at
on the
least when
ground.
that, yeah,
Boots on the ground to help enable those relationships to be part of the
yep,
conversation.
yep, it makes a massive difference.
So, Wiza, we have in the show a section called "Explain That Tweet," where I dig through your Twitter, which was prolific, so it took me a while to get to this, and I try to find something interesting that needs a little bit more unpacking. I've got a tweet. I've got earthquake.
Oh gosh,
In the middle of this
oh
earthquake, as I
gosh,
try to survive, I would love
yeah,
to read out this tweet. Um,
yeah,
so, a quote: "I'm this close to giving up on all my attempts in venture capital.
yeah,
I'm not good at it, and instead focusing on my efforts on starting part-time the Institute for the Advancement of Blockchain in Africa. But I know
yeah.
nothing about raising grant or soft capital." What was going on here? What was on your mind? Because this was recent in October.
Yeah, so I think like, I've been doing various things in venture
Mm,
over the last like year and a half. And I have all these formal engagements with some of the funds that you had mentioned when introducing me for the show. And I realized that, like, okay, absolutely none of them are listening to me when I bring them deals that I think are interesting. It's actually other funds run by other fund managers who are like investing in companies that like I introduced them to.
mm,
So I found that like really weird, right? So like, on one hand, it's like, okay, clearly I must be reasonably decent at identifying companies. Otherwise, like, other fund managers wouldn't be investing. But at the same time, the funds that I have a mandate to work with are not interested in investing. So it was like really annoying for me. And then I also realized that, like, even though investors and entrepreneurs work together to build companies, and like, there's a key component that each party brings that the other needs, there's a fundamental like misalignment of incentives in my view, because like the investor has an incentive to get into a company that's going to be big at cheapest possible price,
mhm.
and the founder obviously has an incentive to preserve as much equity as possible to be able to attract the best possible talent
Right.
and also optimize for their upside, right? So there's like this perpetual tension
Hmm.
between investors and startups and founders that no one ever really wants to talk about, but like it is what it is. So I just found it like a little bit frustrating
Hmm.
trying to advocate for founders while investing other people's money, because like there's also fiduciary duty for one who is an investor taking other people's money to make sure that they invest at the lowest possible prices and maximize their upside. And like that for me like required an emotional dissonance
Right.
that I think I lack the uh, objectivity to have, because like I'm a founder first, and
Yes.
I've been a founder serially before Chipper and getting into venture and everything. So I was like, yeah, this is not going to work for me. The best thing that I can do is to invest my own money.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping to experience some more liquidity over the next few years to be able to do that. Or if I can't do that, then find other ways of being helpful to founders. Because being a VC, I wasn't. I was finding myself saying no a lot, which you have to do as part of the job,
Right.
and I didn't. And I don't see that as helpful to founders without any like specific context. So yeah, I think that like blockchain technology specifically and crypto in general can do a lot for the continent, because it can allow communities to mobilize resources, crowdfunding style, and like move money quite easily across borders. So that was like just something that I think is it could be more a more effective ecosystem enabler by focusing on making blockchain more useful for the continent, more so
Hmm.
than anything else. I think right now, I changed my mind a lot about a lot of things. So maybe it might not be blockchain that um, is the thing that
Hmm.
that makes me do that. But certainly, like I've just given up on VC. I don't think I'm willing to put in the work that is necessary to become like really good at it. And then it's also very difficult to have impact unless you're like very good at it. It's like the top VCs in the world are the ones who like disproportionately carry the impact. So I guess they're also subject to a power law.
They are indeed. They are indeed. That is actually very insightful. from your personal experience, because you've also, been an investor, operator, and entrepreneur. So you have lived the three lives in many
Yeah.
ways. What about your future? What would you see in your future between that trifecta?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stay an operator
Mm,
for the foreseeable future. Um, I quite enjoy just like working on problems and not having to carry the general stress and anxiety that comes with being the founder or chief executive of an organization,
mm,
at least for the foreseeable future, right? Because like I think I still have time. I'm 28 now, so like I'm not in any particular rush to um, have all the answers or to have done everything. So yeah, I think that's like I'm also like I think I'm objectively pretty good at being an operator across various roles, at least from the feedback of people that I've worked with in the past and people that I work with now. So
mhm,
I'm like, yeah, that's that. It makes me happy, and right now that's the optimization that I'm making,
mm,
knowing full well that I can like transition into either one of the two other roles quite easily if I wanted to. But like I'm more biased towards doing until I have my own money. I think I will stick to doing and building. Then maybe one day I'll be in a better position to invest.
mm.
And I think we picked the wrong building. We need to get over the other building to survive this volcano.
All right, let's cross on this bridge. There's a bridge down there below.
Oh, is there?
Oh, I just.
Oh,
Oh no! Don't
oh,
come
we
here!
made
Don't come
it.
here! Now we're stuck
Oh
here.
no. Okay.
While we wait to perish,
We might make it. We might
we
make it.
if we're lucky, we will. But
Yeah.
while we wait for that, um, I'm curious to hear, because you were mentioning blockchain and crypto, and I've been following you on Twitter. What was, I guess, your crypto moment? Where did you become knowledgeable and understand and excited about the opportunities that it had?
Yeah, so like I bought a bunch of Bitcoin in 2015
Hmm.
um, that I had like kind of forgotten about, and I had like been seeing people like talk about their gains over like a macro scale, like over the course of months and years, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is pretty interesting. So at some point, like at the start of the pandemic, early 2020, I opened up that wallet that had that crypto that I bought in 2015, and I realized that like I was up 20x, right? And I was like so mad at myself for not having invested more. So, with the pandemic and all that, there was a lot of time to do desk research, right? And I just like sat down and started like deep diving into what's happening in the space, educated myself on Ethereum, and like I'm a software developer by experience and by training. And then I started like looking into what the Ethereum virtual machine actually is, and like it kind of clicked that like it's a completely different thing from Bitcoin. And like I just went deeper into the rabbit hole. And it took me like about 6, 7 months and to become like technically proficient.
Hmm.
And then I started like putting money in other tokens that I think had like a promising technical utility. And by the end of the year, there was a massive bull run, obviously, with Bitcoin's value almost I think 2xing since the
Right.
start of the pandemic and the end of it. And it was just like, wow, this is amazing. I made more money from crypto trades than I did from like my day job.
Or
And I was
perhaps
like,
from
yeah,
entrepreneurship as well.
yeah. So I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I just started seeing some of the practical use cases. I had friends trying to send me money from Nigeria. It was a nightmare. So it was like really, really challenging to do that without crypto. And I think like for many Africans, crypto
Hmm.
has like a lot of day-to-day functional utility.
Right.
Like in the US and other, Balaji Srinivasan now refers to the world in terms of the declining world, the descending world, and the ascending world.
Right.
So I think the US I can I can describe as the descending world.
Hmm.
Yeah, the financial systems that exist there still like work for most people, but like for Africans, it's really hard to do international business with African currency pairs. How did we
I,
die? I'm so frustrated.
I don't know what happened. We just wiped.
Shame. But yeah, so like like it's not like an esoteric thing,
Mm.
right? I have like like my girlfriend has like 6 assets that she's holding on an exchange, and like she has utility for those assets.
Right.
So I'm just really excited about it, and I think it's something that works really well for us because we're not trying to replace an old system. We're trying to build a system for the first time when it comes to finances.
New beginnings bring a lot of excitement. There's another trend that's also very exciting I've been seeing out of Africa. Historically, and this is similar in Latin America, we've seen a lot of companies that are from the US for Africa, from the US for Latin America, from Europe for Africa. We're starting to
Mhm.
see more from Africa for Africa, which is, for example, maybe Chipper's there right now. But what's exciting is we're also seeing things that are more along the lines of from Africa for the world. I'm thinking about things like Paga and Tayo. Do you think we'll continue to see more of these things? Did I mischaracterize anything? What excites you about this potential, and where do you think we'll see more of that?
Yeah, I think it's generally like a function of globalization. And, the internet's making the world a lot smaller. Crypto is making the world a lot smaller from an economic perspective, because suddenly you don't have to worry about jurisdictions and bank accounts and all of that jazz. So I think that's ultimately where things are going to go. And I think we're going to see more Africa for Africa products first, and then Africa global products. There's a company called Frame that's building like software developer tools, like webhooks as a service sort of like solutions, which I think are really quite compelling. I'm pretty excited about them as an example. But yeah, I think until we have solved adequately for our own problems, it's very difficult to think about things through like a global lens or a global perspective. So it's not going to be a function of time, but definitely there's a lot of remote work startups like Andela. I would argue that Andela is like a built in Africa for the world sort of play. And yeah, things like those I think with time are only going to get better. It was a bad idea for me to go up the stairs of that building, hey? I just realized that for acid rain, you probably want to stay on the bottom floor.
I was just blindly following you, and I ended up getting wiped as well. I should pay attention.
So I think that's where obviously it's going to happen, and it's going to happen more quickly as the world becomes more globalized.
Well, as we wrap up here, coming to a close, I'm really curious to a question. What are, I guess, your vices? What are some of the things that you spend too much money on, perhaps?
Apple Watch straps. Oh yeah, like I have way too many. I won't even disclose a number. I always want to try a different one for some reason, and like I've accumulated several over the last year or so. It's pretty unfortunate. I wouldn't call it a vice. I think it's necessary for one to have some releases, and I do quite enjoy some Argentinian wines. So I've been enjoying some bottles from a winery called Rutini. They make really good Malbecs from Argentina, which are great. I go on holiday twice a year, so once in December and once in June, and I kind of like go all out when I do. So yeah, for me it's necessary. I think it just makes all of the work worth it, because I genuinely work like 6 or 7 days a week,
right?
And through most like public holidays on various things. So. I try to compensate myself commensurately. Well,
I'm glad you treat yourself. Seems like you deserve it. Wiza, it's been an absolute pleasure here surviving, or trying our best to survive. At the end of the show, we like to give space to the guests to talk about things that are on their mind, things they're excited about. Oh, wow, I just got it.
Wow, yeah, tornado. Painful.
And I don't want to let that distract from you. So tell us what is on your mind, what you're excited about. This is your space.
Yeah, sure. Like, I really love the work that I get to do at Chipper. We get to see tangible impacts on how we enable people to do more with their money every single day. A lot of people know us as a remittance app, but there's actually a lot of other features such as crypto, fractional investing in US stocks, which we just launched in Uganda. First ever service of its kind in the whole country. I can't believe I actually survived that. I'm alive.
You survived? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm alive. I know. It's insane, but I don't have a leg. I've lost one of my legs, so it's pretty unfortunate. So that's one thing that I get excited about every single morning. We're able to include an entire generation of Africans into participating in global financial services that they otherwise don't have access to. And for me, the big thing with that is that the more Africans we can get with access to crypto, the more Africans we give the option to opt out of bad governance, to opt out of failing systems. And I think that's going to be absolutely crucial to our positioning in the global socioeconomic system. So I'm excited for that more so than anything else.
Well, I'm excited to continue seeing you build. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to see a specific guest or game on the show, let me know on social media or at email at thejuanonone@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to join the majority of listeners and subscribe on your favorite platform.